It's time to talk LSU baseball with Mike Scarborough and Kendall Rogers of D1 Baseball. This is Batter Up.
All right, well, here it is. LSU Tennessee week is here, and it's going to be a big one. Hopefully this weather, it clears up. It looks like it's going to, and it should be really nice at Alex Box this weekend. And, of course, number 6, Tennessee Vols coming to town. A left-handed pitching battle on Friday night. Yeah. Anderson and Doyle. And so, as always, we bring in Kendall Rogers from D1 Baseball to talk about it.
Hey, what's up, man? Yeah, looking forward to the weekend. I mean, this, other than Texas and A&M, this is the series of the weekend in college baseball. I mean, you look at the matchup between Kade Anderson and Liam Doyle, the storylines between these two programs, essentially old blood versus new blood. It should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we had Jay and we had Connor Ware today. I think we were supposed to also have Braswell, but there was a lot of street flooding in Baton Rouge this morning, and so we had media who didn't make it on time for that because of the weather. And Braswell had a academic situation, class or something that was messed up. But Jay looks like he's ready for this one, and ready to brush off the ending of last weekend's series and Tuesday night with Northwestern getting run ruled at Alex Box. But it's going to be real interesting to see what he might do this weekend as far as his pitching rotation and or how he would like for it to go. And everybody's questioning who he'll pitch on Sunday. And I laugh at the SEC release that just popped out an hour or so ago with the probable pitching starters. Both Tennessee and LSU are to be determined for Sunday.
Funny how that works, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say this. I mean, I think if, from Tennessee's standpoint, I do get it because, the Vols are in a situation to where, A.J. Russell's kind of been working his way back. Tegan Kuhn's a talented young arm for them. Has just been a little bit up and down, was not very good last week against Kentucky. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens with Tennessee's number 3 spot this weekend. I would think they'll probably either start Russell or Kuhns, but who knows? Maybe Tony has a little rabbit in his hat.
Well, I know a lot of people are, ready to say that it's time for Cowan to be the starter on Sunday and trying to come up with different scenarios. And I don't know, where Jay is as far as near the end of his rope, at the end of his rope with Shores, but we thought when the season started that boy, he had it all figured out, and this was good. He had the full slate for an entire weekend, and it just hasn't worked out that way.
No, it hasn't. I mean, even Shores was the last Sunday. 4 runs and 2 2/3. He just has not been right consistently. And, I do think it's really interesting if you look at LSU this weekend is it's truly going to be one of those series where like Jay just kind of makes a call based on how the weekend's going. If you're in a situation where you're LSU on Friday night and, you've got a, 4 or 5 run lead, I don't think you're going to see Cowan. I think they're going to try to close that thing out with Evans or someone else. And then on Saturday, again, I think you're in a situation to where it'll be interesting to me to see, if LSU gets down a couple of runs or, if it's a tie ball game late, do you go for the kill shot with Cowan, or do you, again, try to use someone else and see if you can kind of escape out of that game with the win and then save him for Sunday. But it's going to be interesting. I mean, I think as you get close to the postseason, anytime you have a TBA on a Sunday this late in the year, it's a little concerning. But the good news for the Tigers is, I mean, there's clearly a lot of really solid options. They just need somebody to emerge as a consistent force in that spot.
Well, look, you still got multiple SEC series left, but we are at the end of April. And, how important are these series? I mean, because you look at where LSU and Tennessee are at in the standings, and you look at the way this is playing out. Everybody wants to be a top 8 national seed. Your odds of making it to Omaha are exponential if you're in there in one of the 8. I mean, at some point, these things really matter more than they used to, right?
Yeah, there's no doubt. And I think the other thing for me when I look at LSU is when you look at the path ahead, this weekend's important because, let's just say you lose that series this weekend, you go to A&M next weekend, who's red hot. You have Arkansas, who's obviously a really good team at home. So you've got 2 series back-to-back that you kind of feel like I wouldn't say Arkansas at home is 50-50, but, I mean, it's probably pretty close. It might be 50-50 with how good they are. But, I mean, let's just say hypothetically, I think LSU wins this series. We'll get to that in a second. But let's just say they lost this weekend and they have to face A&M and Arkansas. If they lost all 3 of those, I mean, they're not a top 8. So, it's really interesting in the SEC how close the difference between each one of these teams is, because it's not by a lot.
Well, and look, everybody, when you look at what everybody's got the rest of the way, you can sit there and look at that last away series, the last SEC series for LSU at South Carolina. You got to believe Maneri's going to have that. But my point is that everybody's got every week is a must get. And so
let's not go that far.
They're just not getting easy.
They're going to lose a series of South Carolina. Come on now.
No, I'm not saying that, but it's not like it's. But believe me, they're going to give you everything they've got just because you got to think those
ready. I mean, the question you wonder with South Carolina by that point is its season pretty much over? By that last weekend, I mean, let's just say South Carolina, has 6 or 7 or 8 wins in conference, and they've got to win the SEC tournament. I mean, actually, if you're LSU, that's the perfect team to play at the end of the year, because they might be more saving arms for Hoover, because that's their only chance of getting in. So you might go into that weekend where South Carolina is almost like white flagging it just to get ready for the tournament. But you are right about the remaining schedules. I mean, there's not an easy remaining schedule in this conference. I mean, number one, Texas right now playing really well, but they get A&M at home this weekend. They follow up A&M, by the way, with a 3-game series at Fayetteville. I think they come back home to face Florida, who, by the way, they're suddenly kind of figured things out. And then, let's finish the season against another rival in Oklahoma on the road. So there's just not an easy pathway in this conference unless you're playing Missouri.
Is it too early to make a statement? And this is one of Kenny Haines' questions. Does the winner of this Tennessee series host the Super Regional and the loser just get a regional? Is it too early to make those kind of proclamations?
It's probably too early. I mean, because you just never know. I mean, what if LSU won the series and lost 3 straight and then played terrible to Hoover, or vice versa? But I mean, if you look at LSU's metrics right now, okay, I mean, they're 14-6 against quad 1 and quad 2. They're 9-6 against quad 1. They win the series, they would be 11-7 against quad 1. That's without other teams making a move. They'd be 36-9, really good conference record. I mean, they'd be in an awesome spot. I mean, you would have to probably lose all 3 of those series, because I think if you go 3-3 against even A&M and Arkansas, and then you win the South Carolina series, there's zero doubt you're a top 8, in my opinion, if you win the Tennessee series. So what I'm saying is the Tennessee series, I feel like, gives LSU a little bit of flexibility going into the final few weeks, whereas if they lose a series, not quite as much.
Yep. Well, I mentioned his name. Let's hear from Kenny.
Kenny Haines is a proud 1989 graduate of LSU Law School with a passion for justice. Kenny stands out as the only lawyer in the state, board certified in both appellate practice and family law. Drawing from 34 years of trial experience, Kenny has navigated the most complex aspects of real people's lives. If you need help in Northwest Louisiana with a family issue, legal issue, or a highly skilled trial attorney, call Kenny, 318-222-2100.
There you go. Of course, Kenny is the official attorney of TigerBait.com. And I want to circle back, Kendall, a couple of things we just brought up. We brought up South Carolina. Someone on our show last night asked the question if we thought that Paul Maneri would turn that program around. And my question for you is, what would be a turnaround? What equates to a turnaround at South Carolina? What are we talking about?
Yeah.
That's what kind of finish is that?
I mean, this year, I don't think there's a chance in hell they make the postseason this year. But I mean,
I'm just talking about
yeah.
if what is the turnaround at South Carolina, and if it's whatever that turnaround is, if it's not done by the end of year 2, is he in trouble going into year 3?
Oh, I think if they don't turn things around next year to some degree, I think that I don't think he'll even need to be fired. I think he'll retire. That's my hunch. I think he'll just kind of view that. Yeah, I think he'll just view that job as just a little difficult for that time in his career. I would say this about South Carolina, and again, there's nobody from South Carolina is going to be watching this, so I won't offend anybody. But here's the thing about South Carolina: Ray Tanner was a legendary coach. He led them to back-to-back national championships. He was awesome, but the game has changed. Like South Carolina, from an NIL perspective, is not LSU. They're not Texas A&M. They're not Texas. Hell, they're not Tennessee, or they're not Arkansas. So, I mean, immediately before we even start recruiting, South Carolina is behind at least, 6, 7 schools in the pecking order, if not 8, in terms of recruitments. So I just think South Carolina, I think the goalposts have shifted for them in baseball. I think this is a program that if they could be in the mix to host a regional every 3 or 4 years, I mean, I consider that a pretty good coaching job. Because I just don't think it is I don't think that job is what it was during Ray Tanner's tenure there. The game has changed too much, and they just don't have the war chest that some of these other schools have.
So, guys in my age range and your age range, how we view South Carolina is not going to be the way to view them going forward.
No, I mean, well, here's the other thing. We haven't even talked about Tennessee. I mean, remember, when South Carolina was really good, guess who sucked? Tennessee, Kentucky. I mean, I wouldn't say Kentucky because John Cohen actually had a few good years there with like A.J. Reed and Colin Cowgill and those guys. But, I mean, for the most part, Kentucky was very average, and Tennessee was a punching bag. All of a sudden, those teams are not punching bags, anything but. So I just think South Carolina is an incredibly difficult job. I mean, it's very similar to me, honestly, to their football job. I think their football job with Clemson and State, Georgia across state lines, I mean, I consider like North Carolina for me in football more attractive. Like I think football is the same way. It's just a really difficult job, much more difficult than people would think.
So if I make my way to Alex Box this weekend, and of course, as we've talked about, Kendall is going to be there. If I make my way to the press box for a game or two, and I walk past you and I look down at your laptop, I'm absolutely going to see the Horns and the Aggies up on.
Probably so. That's a pretty good bet.
Do you have a pick on that series right now?
I lean Texas at home. It would not shock me to see A&M win this series, but even without Jared Spencer, I mean, you look back at UT's midweek game earlier this week against Texas State, and granted, A&M's a lot better than Texas State, but Texas was down. I want to say 11. I think it was 11-6 or 11-7 late in the game, and Texas just found a way to win. So they're just one of those teams. Until I see somebody actually beat them at home, I'm just going to keep picking them, and that's just kind of where I am. But A&M's dangerous. That series for me with LSU next weekend is very dangerous.
I can't believe you're laying off of that one. I can't believe you're not going to that one. This LSU series popped up. Vols thing popped up at the right time for you to be able to stay off of that one.
Well, it's not so much staying off of it. Actually, it's kind of funny. I mean, I did not go to a series in Baton Rouge last year. And so this year I was kind of like, I've got to go back to a series in Baton Rouge this year. I didn't do it last year. And back when A&M was kind of stinking, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do LSU Tennessee. But you know what? As big as A&M Texas is, I mean, this Tennessee LSU series is huge. It's not going to get quite the traction to some people as that series. But I mean, these are two teams that can absolutely win the national championship at the end of the year. And frankly, you kind of you could kind of say that about A&M and Texas right now. Like I wouldn't want to play A&M right now.
Where you reside in your area, absolutely that Texas A&M. But I think throughout the SEC,
absolutely,
this LSU Tennessee is probably bigger.
It is, and I just think that the competitiveness level, these two programs, the competitiveness level between Jay Johnson and Tony Vitello. I know they don't dislike each other, but there's definitely a competitive edge there between those two guys. I mean, they're both guys that when you go out on the recruiting trail, I mean, one's going in the door, one's going out the door. They're going after a lot of the same kids, and for that reason, a lot more this weekend's pretty important.
All right, this LSU hitting slump, is it going to work its way out in time for the Vols and
It's got to, doesn't it? I mean,
yeah.
yeah. I mean,
You know,
I just again, I find it very hard to believe, and I know he's had a home run since the last time we talked, but again, I find it very hard to believe that guys like Jared Jones are not just very due in conference play at least.
man, some of Jared
Right.
Jones at bats, Kendall, in the last couple of weeks have been awful, painful to watch.
Yeah, it's just weird. You know, what's interesting about Jared, and I was talking to Scott about this the other day, is I look back to the series in Austin, and the only thing that I remember from that series from him that was just interesting was the fact that I mean, it was kind of odd in the sense that like even when he made outrageously hard contact, it was always to the other way. So I just kind of wonder if LSU's been working with him a little bit and trying to pull the ball maybe a little bit more. I don't know, but there's got to be a run there. I mean, that guy's too good of a player to hit
Milam, he's not alone.
Yeah, I mean, Milam's hitting 200 in the SEC. And think back to even the LSU series, like Milam was awesome that whole weekend. So yeah, boy, I didn't even realize Milam was hitting that. I knew he's struggling. I didn't realize he was hitting 200. That's got to change.
Yeah, yeah, and that was something that Jay was asked about today, and
I just this goes back to this series and why I picked LSU. I think I mentioned earlier I was picking LSU, but it's just I feel like LSU is just one of those programs that when people start doubting them, they're at home, the crowd's going to be rowdy. It's just hard to pick against them, and that's kind of why I'm going with the Tigers this weekend.
It's going to be really rowdy this weekend. I'm telling you.
Oh, dude, LSU fans and Vols fans. I mean, I wouldn't say they hate each other. That's a little much, but I mean, I can just tell you my Twitter mentions like there's a lot of animosity there.
But Kendall, look, it's we're in the SEC. Can Tennessee go and there not be that hatred and that animosity towards Vitello and the way his mannerisms?
I don't know, Missouri. Since he's a Missouri graduate.
Yeah. And
hey,
I try
there
to.
was a point in time, by the way. Can we just add this little? I always try to add this little nugget in there because people can't believe it. But there was a point in time when Missouri picked someone else over Tony Vitello as head coach.
It's amazing.
Didn't turn out so well for the Tigers. Missouri Tigers.
I brought this up before, but I don't know. Do you tell me? Is it an accurate depiction to say that the way LSU fans and other fans of the SEC view Vitello is the same way that fans outside of LSU viewed Will Wade when he was at LSU?
A little bit. Like I think a little bit of it. I mean, I wouldn't say jealousy is the right word here, but I think from LSU fans' perspective, I think there's a little envy in the sense that like Tony, like immediately turned those guys into like a superpower, like overnight. I think there is a little bit of that, but let's not kid ourselves. If the LSU job was open in 5 years, I'm not saying Jay. Let's just say Jay retired. If the LSU job was open in 4 or 5 years, all these people who say they hate Tony would be lined up outside of Woody or someone else's office, whoever the AD is at that time, demanding they hire Vitello. 100%.
The way I see it, for Jay to be out at LSU, it would have to be, and I don't know what he brings home. I know he's all baseball all the time. To me, there would have to be a point where there's a burnout syndrome with him.
Yeah, I don't know if I see that.
To me, that's the only way. Or does he
some
go?
Guys, there are coaches, and I've talked to people that cover like college football and college basketball about this, but you've seen it a little bit more in some of these other sports where coaches are just out of nowhere been like, you know what, like I'm going to retire. And I mean, I don't, I talk to Jay all the time, but I mean, we don't really talk about retirement. And for all I know,
he's not even 50 yet.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, who knows? In 5 years, a guy may go, you know what, man, I'm tired of doing all this NIL stuff. Like, I just want to go hang out. And so you just never know. People change
right.
overnight.
And Kendall, that's the scenario where he could end up somewhere else, where there's the fatigue of it all, the burnout. Maybe he goes one too many years without national championship. That's the other question. How many years at LSU can even a great coach like Jay Johnson go without a national championship before it starts getting a little toxic around here?
Yeah, I mean, he just won one, what, 2 years ago?
Right. Can you go another 5-6 years without one?
Yeah, of course. I mean, if he's winning 40 to 50 games every other year and they're falling just short of a national championship, yeah, they're not. I mean, who's the last program to fire a coach who's going to Omaha pretty
And
consistently?
I'm not saying fire. I'm just saying where the
Yeah.
fans are restless, right? Where
Yeah.
the fans are getting after him. I mean, that's what happened to
Yeah.
Paul.
Yeah. I will say this. I think Jay is a little bit more equipped to handle that than Paul is, in all honesty. Like, he's kind of one of those guys that if you go after him, like, he kind of takes it personal and he kind of takes it in a way to, like, okay, like, this is going to make me a lot better. Whereas, like, some
Right.
coaches, not necessarily, I'm not calling Paul out, but like some coaches will go whine about it. Last year, I think there was one point in the season where uh, I don't even, it must have been really early because I mean, A&M was really good last year, but there was one point in the season where, the fans were razzing on Sauce for some deal, and he like got all flustered in post game about the fans. Like, that's just not who Jay is.
No, he's not. He internalizes a lot more than yeah, he's
I
really
would
good at
say
that.
this. I will say this though. When you look at LSU baseball in the hierarchy of the SEC, it's still in an awesome spot. But I would say this to people: a lot of people go back and it hasn't happened in a while, but like every once in a while, I'll have people invoke Skip, and Skip was a legendary coach, incredible. But college baseball is way different than it was when Skip Bertman was the head coach.
Absolutely.
There were, I don't know, one or two programs in college baseball that were even close to putting the resources into baseball that LSU was when Skip Bertman had it rolling. Now, I mean, there's 8 or 9. Well, I wouldn't go about 8 or 9. There's 6 or 7 in the SEC alone.
All right.
That are
So let me ask you this. I'm
that
gonna give you some figures.
okay.
Is it reasonable expectations by LSU fans
Mhm.
to expect that the LSU baseball team 3 out of 5 years goes to Omaha?
3 out of 5. I think that's reasonable. I think
All right.
that's reasonable, but I will say this. I mean, if they got to super regional in one of those years, I mean, the super regional really is like, hey, how does the ball fall in the outfield?
Yeah.
Anything can
All right.
happen.
And then a national championship twice every decade. Or is it
I
one
mean,
a
for a
decade
program like
reasonable?
LSU, I don't have an issue with that expectation. I mean, would I fire a head coach for not doing that? No. Would I be a little frustrated if I'm an LSU fan? Probably.
Yeah, because I mean that's where Paul ended up.
Yeah.
09 and then went, to 2022. Is that right? 21?
Yeah. I mean, what I would do with LSU baseball is take whatever expectation I have for LSU football and times it by half. Because I think the LSU baseball job, I think the LSU football job's a really good job, but I think the LSU baseball job's even better. And probably, I think it's the top college baseball job in the country. I really do, even more so than Texas.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting. The Aggies, we talked about a little bit each week, but it was a matter of time before they got it together. And you absolutely nailed it. They're hot as crazy, and Jay talked about that today. And
You just never know, man. College
as
baseball is a wild thing.
he's looking down the line and saying, because he was asked the question, do you talk to your team about how important these games are of getting that one of those 8 seeds? He goes, man, I'm not putting that on them. There's no need to. And then he started rattling off where he's got to go, and Arkansas and the A&M, and there's so much left.
Yeah, and I'll kind of wrap it up with this, but what A&M's done over the last 3 weeks is a prime example of how quick things can change. We just talked about Monster Milam and Jared Jones and guys like that. Man, all it takes is one good weekend, and all of a sudden those guys are just clicking going down the stretch. So it can change that fast, and maybe it'll be this weekend against the Vols. I think we're going to get both teams' best shots.
Yeah, I don't know if this team's to the point now where they need a possum to run out, but somehow these bats are going to get warmed up again. I believe it. But all right, Kendall, talk about D1 baseball. You're going to be in town. You're going to have a lot of pre and post, and a great Twitter feed to follow during the game. And
yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely, buddy. Ed Kendall Rogers on Twitter. Yeah, we'll have a lot of coverage. Obviously, my boys here at Tiger Bait have awesome coverage too. But we'll have some columns from throughout the weekend in Baton Rouge, and I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to eat when I get into town tomorrow.
I got some places for you. I'll give you a full list.
I've always heard Louisiana Lanyap's a good one to go to. I haven't been to that one yet.
That's a good one. Capital City Grill on Sunday for brunch, and Struby's. But I'm gonna try and meet up with you. I'm gonna treat you to lunch Saturday if we'll figure out.
Yeah, we got a 7:00 start, so we got a lot of time to waste on Saturday.
Yeah, let's meet up this weekend and we'll do something.
You got it, brother. We'll see you soon. Thanks, guys.
All right, bud. Later.
See you.